This week on Arizona Illustrated, to focus, to be calm and aware, is to meditate.
If you can change your mind a little, you can change your mind a lot.
An ancient watering practice renewed.
How can you grow food and still cut down on your water?
A visit to Everybody Gallery.
If you're a self-funded gallery, you can really do whatever you want.
And Arizona Profiles, a Vietnam veteran. Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. With all the stresses and distractions of daily life and the constant flow of conflict and suffering in the 24-hour news cycle, it's comforting to know that there are ways to calm our minds and find inner peace. Some turn to exercise, some to self-expression through art and music, and others to meditation.
The latest in a series of cyber attacks.
You know, people are so stressed.
Rescuers search for survivors.
And especially these days.
Also recovered the bodies of 10 victims.
It seems there's a lot of war, a lot of political upheaval. People just shouting at each other. Nobody's listening.
Today, his tweets prompted some of the harshest
a lot of
criticism yet.
Violence.
Low IQ, crazy Mika.
People so confused about where happiness comes from that they're harming others.
That he fights fire with fire.
Part of what's happening is we're responding with stress and anxiety about what will happen.
Awarded an annual Gay Pride March today.
So it's very confusing and upsetting. It's hard to make sense of all that. We think my job is so stressful. What's happening in the world is stressing me out. We got it turned around. We're responding with stress. There's only one thing we can actually control, and that's our own mind. And we put almost all of our energy into the externals. So when something really big happens, or we're watching something in a faraway land, it's this paralysis comes, or this feeling of impotence or dread. So for me, I'm so happy to have a way to understand it and a way to relate to it that keeps me peaceful. So that's very much part of Buddha's teachings. The path is recognizing that I can determine how I experience what's happening. I'm in charge of my response. And that's why we need meditation.
Her name is Gen Kelsang Soglam, which means fortunate one on the path of accumulation. She is one of the teachers here at the Kadampa Meditation Center on Tucson's east side. It is a Buddhist temple.
I'm a Buddhist. I'm like a full-on Buddhist. I'm a Buddhist nun. I'm occasionally accused of being a monk. Once adamantly, I said, okay, I'm a monk.
The journey to find inner peace is at the core of their mission. More than 75 regular practitioners attend the center, as well as new students and visitors. Gen Soglam teaches primarily at the Sierra Vista branch, but is here on a regular basis.
My wish for anyone who turns up at a center, at a temple, or anyone that I interact with is that they gain some insight into the power of their own mind and their own potential for peace.
Classes, teachings, and prayer are offered. There is no pressure to convert to Buddhism.
Our main focus is to try to help people have more peaceful minds and happier lives. And so anybody's welcome. Anybody can come at any time, and then it's up to them. When we stop creating any negative action.
Gen Kelsang Lingpor is the principal teacher at Kadampa and has been teaching in Tucson since 2002. Her name means fortunate one gone to the pure land. She too sees suffering in the lives of others and thinks about how she can help.
As I grew older, my old way of doing that would have been to go out and protest, to get involved in organizations for change, and I still think those things are important for people to do, to try to change things. But the only way that you can really learn to benefit others is if you learn to tame your own mind first. To the supreme mind.
Her own journey on this path began with unwelcome news.
When I was 43, I was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I was told I only had, at most, 2 years to live. All of a sudden, I had all these questions, what's the meaning of life? What was the point? What was meaningful about my life? And when I thought about that, the only things that really seemed meaningful were things I did to help other people.
She went about taming her own mind by letting go of a high-pressure career and a stressful relationship, and found Buddhism and meditation.
And my mind changed completely. I mean, my life changed completely at that point. And then after a year and a half, I went in for tests and it was gone. I went into remission. So that was in 1993. So I shouldn't be around today.
Both Soglam and Ling Por say that meditation is at the heart of their practice, and that it is the key to making positive change at a deep level.
I had to almost train myself to enjoy it, We train ourselves to enjoy things in life. Nobody's born loving football. Nobody's born loving skiing. And that happens in meditation too, which is why we have to train, because now you're noticing. You're noticing how often your mind wanders.
I went to class for quite a long while before I started meditating, because that just seemed so boring. I was a New Yorker. I had places to go, people to see. You'd like me to sit still? Sitting still was just absurd. Twitchy mind, trying to think about my breath, wandering off. And, it's like playing the piano. If you just keep practicing. We practice meditation.
That practice can calm the mind and bring us closer to inner peace. These practitioners are meditating at the Wat Buddhamita Buddhist Meditation Center in central Tucson.
In meditation, we're taking a time out from our habitual ways of thinking. You're so used to being aggravated with them and worrying about that. That's our mental habit, and it carries the day. So in meditation, you step back and you train in deciding what you want to think about. So initially, that's just breath. You've wandered to worrying about work or the world. That's right, I don't need to think about that right now. I'm thinking about my breath. You wander off, that's all right, you just keep coming back. So it's like flexing a muscle.
You start by getting in a comfortable position. Sit with your back straight, but not tense, relaxed. Eyes lowered, or you can close them if that's more comfortable for you. And then your mouth closed, your tongue resting against your teeth. And then you gradually turn your focus to your breath. The sensation is the air is going out and coming in. You try to let go of everything else and just hold your mind on that sensation. At the beginning, your mind's going to wander all the time. You notice your mind wandered and you bring it back to the breath.
Breathing meditation is a preliminary, so we use that to get better at deciding what we want to think about. Although it's just a preliminary, it still can really affect our stress levels and help us be more relaxed.
Once you've got some control over your mind, then you want to start working on meditations that change or transform your mind. So for example, from an impatient mind to a patient mind, maybe a selfish mind to a generous mind, from a self-cherishing to cherishing others more, from anger to compassion. And the idea is that if you can change your mind a little, you can change your mind a lot. If you don't have peace of mind, it doesn't matter how good things are externally, you're not going to be happy. And if you do have peace of mind, things can be pretty tough externally and you're still happy. So, much more important to work on your mind than all of that other stuff, which is what we spend all our time doing. We chase after more possessions and we chase after more money and more relationships, and those things can be nice if you're already peaceful and happy, and if you're not, it doesn't do any good.
From one point of view, your meditation practice, if you feel like you are a Buddhist, you have a spiritual guide and you're following that path, it's a bit personal. It's the most intimate relationship you can have. So those moments, they're not ecstatic, they're sort of almost the opposite. That kind of like stillness. It's more like going in to a deep, still, crystal clear mountain lake. so settled, so in your heart, and spacious at the same time. You know, in the West, we have that expression, do you know it? Drop in the bucket. In Buddhism, we say, drop in the bucket. You know, I meditated for 5 minutes today. I put a peace drop in the bucket of the world, if you will. And that's wonderful. That's the side of the solution. And that's how things change.
Using water wisely is a necessity in the Sonoran Desert. For southern Arizona gardeners, looking for new ways to efficiently provide water to a growing plant is a perpetual quest. Sometimes you find the future by looking into the past.
The Sonoran Desert is considered to be the greenest of the arid regions in the world, lush and colorful despite the sun's intensity and lack of water. Increase this precious resource and the list of plants you can grow is endless. You'll find examples at the home of David Mount and Jennifer Hall on Tucson's north side. What began as a backyard hobby decades ago is flourishing, just like their showy or tasty specimens. The retired University of Arizona scientists and nature lovers are cultivating much of the plant-based diet they consume.
I'd like to think that people can, if they really want to make a difference, one of the things they can do is grow their own food.
As much as they like the food, Mount and Hall are also cognizant of the water it takes to grow it. So they're excited about an ancient technique that is making a comeback. Oyas, terracotta clay pots connected to a water reservoir and buried in the ground, can deliver water directly and efficiently to the plant's roots. More efficiently, in fact, than the preferred method of many small and large-scale gardening operations, drip irrigation.
I expect these to use about somewhere between 7 and 10 times less water than traditional drip systems.
That's right, a fraction of the water compared to drip irrigation, which already saves more than watering by hand or flood irrigation.
We really were quite distressed that we were starting to use more and more water. And so how can you grow food and still cut down on your water? And so this is a great way to do it, and we're making a lot of progress. I'm feeling very good about that.
David Mount makes some of his own oyas, but he also bought a batch from a Tucson business that focuses on the slow seeping systems for avid gardeners. Cutting Edge Ceramics was established in 2009. The company used to concentrate on decorations and souvenirs, but has evolved over the years. And now, clay oyas for saving water make up the bulk of the business. Co-owner J.C. Matthews likes to garden, and he also wanted to conserve water, so he looked into the prehistoric oya system for modern uses.
At first, we had a lot of skeptics that are now actually becoming lovers of the product, which is good. You know, because I really didn't want to try to compete with something that was made 4,000 years old. I really just wanted to improve on it.
There are large pots you can fill up manually, but these smaller varieties, the oya balls, are the most popular. They take up less space in the soil and receive their water from nearby reservoirs that provide the proper low water pressure. They do not plug into automatic drip irrigation systems because of the unpredictable pressure or intermittent water supply.
They're gravity fed through a tube, and they fill up with water and they slowly seep into the soil. And the soil moisture levels stay the same all the time, so the plant's never stressed. I converted my entire garden to these, cut my water bill in half. And then I started sharing them with people for them to try. And I thought, you know what? I should probably get a patent on this. So right now, that patent process is in the works.
There are thousands of oya balls in the ground now, including at Las Milpitas, the Cottonwood Community Farm, which is operated by the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona.
We found that not only has the water usage decreased, the production has increased. So what we're finding is that at the end of the season, when we dig these plants up, there's a big mat of roots just kind of wrapped around that oya. I think it's important. I think the more water becomes an issue in the desert and in the country in general, we're going to need to look towards systems that are even more efficient than drip irrigation.
For David Mount and Jennifer Hall, the clay pots are part of a much broader plan to reduce their impact on the environment. One of their 2 cars is electric.
So I love not having to go to a gas station. It's really great. But also, the energy is not quite free, but much less cost than buying gasoline. And there are no emissions from it. So it's a very green source for energy.
And they compost what they can to nourish their garden. And they've installed solar panels on the roof, which also serves as a conduit for rainwater, which they can use for their water oyas and other irrigation projects.
Well, what's behind me here is a new rainwater tank, collection tank, that we just installed. And it holds over 5,000 gallons of rainwater, and that will drain about half of the roof.
Both are master gardeners from the University of Arizona's Pima County Cooperative Extension, where they address important topics such as growing food in our arid region. The subject of water is always connected, a key component of the environment.
And what do you call them again? Ajos?
Oyas,
Oyas.
O-L-L-A-S.
Oyas.
I mean, the Mexicans have used them forever.
Yeah.
The difference is the way they make these is they come with a cap.
Yeah.
So you take that off and you have to fill them manually,
Yeah.
you know, every day or so.
It is important to us because David and I are both scientists and we see the changes that are happening on our planet. I think everybody has to figure out what little part they can do. And when you look at the bigger problem, it can get pretty discouraging. But by seeing what we can do in our way, that we feel we're making a contribution.
Well, I like challenges and I like solving problems. That's me. And that's, you know, this is the big one for me right now, is to know how to do these things and do them successfully. And I think we're succeeding largely.
There is something new in downtown Tucson. Nope, it's not a bar or a restaurant. It's an art gallery, and those who have opened it have a unique way of creating a space for art.
If you're a self-funded gallery, you can really do whatever you want. The show that we're currently installing is Wall of Text by Matt McGee, an artist from Phoenix.
It's all kind of a text-based show. It's very heavy, black and white, minimal forms.
We're not some big gallery with a big budget. The person that works with us really is going to have to want to, first and foremost.
I'm Christian Ramirez. I am a co-founder and co-curator of Everybody with Alex von Bergen and Andrew Shuda. I met Alex a few years ago at MoCA, which is where I previously worked. And then Alex and I started doing pop-up shows together, but then kind of got tired of just doing one-night events and wanted to find something more permanent. And so him and Andrew knew each other from graduate school, and Andrew was also a big proponent of, like, let's try to find a space to do something on a regular basis.
Between the three of us, we all have a great skill set that can really fulfill, the idea of this, which was provide a great space to show great art in Tucson.
Tucson's grown very rapidly in terms of what restaurants and bars are available. And that's a cultural thing, just like art. The music scene's another good example. I would say the music scene here is much stronger than the art scene in terms of local artists and bands that come through town. But the visual art scene, I don't think, has really necessarily stepped up to that level yet, but I think it's certainly possible.
A lot of it stems from accessibility to seeing art, and Tucson doesn't have that as much as other places. Our last show, which is Good Boy by Sterling Hedges.
The whole room was lit with these blue gels, so when you walked in, it was this kind of blue space.
If there's anything I want you to do right now, it's just relax.
just everything about it, the video, the repetition of that like creepy ice cream truck sound and the text going off and the disappearing figure, everything kind of was weird and otherworldly.
Maybe a lot of people missed that bottle. The show certainly, talks about race, but maybe in a more roundabout way. Instead of directly saying something, it might allude to a certain thing. You can maybe get to different endpoints through the work. You look at one thing one way and you look at it another way. It could maybe be saying something else.
It's really important to the three of us that we maintain a really clean aesthetic. It doesn't matter really who produced it. It doesn't need someone who has like formal training, but it's more about making sure that the space itself is nice and clean in that way so that whatever does go up on the walls looks like it is very thoughtfully curated.
You could say, oh, I like that painting, but really overall, we want you to come out like this is a cool show.
Our programming is fairly selective. We do maybe 10 shows a year. We haven't done any open submissions and don't really see ourselves doing that.
The Mini Mess might have been my favorite show that we've had so far. Or no, Jocko's. Elk Cat is probably my favorite. It is a sculpture that he did that's the final piece of like a multi-year project. Photograph to painting to sculpture. So then the exhibition was the three of them finally together, and all were kind of positioned so that they were looking at one another.
The first show that we did was really bittersweet for me personally because it was with S.J. Gibson, who was my mentor as an undergraduate. I worked with him very closely, and it was really rewarding to have that be our first show and have him on board and work with him.
We're completely DIY, but we wanted to be clean, polished, and a place that artists feel like their work is being respected.
Small DIY spaces are equally as important to big institutions, in my opinion, because it's kind of a balance of the ecosystem within the city.
I don't know how much art can really do. At the very least, it could make someone think about something. Maybe it can confuse someone.
Personally, it can change a lot of people's lives, maybe at an emotional level, even cognitive level.
I think art is really important. I think that it is an opportunity for people to experience and expand their mind and take in new perspectives, especially right now. The more we can discuss those things that make us feel uncomfortable, I think that that's a really good opportunity to understand one another better.
We're all artists, but you don't always have the time or the energy to make art, and so to keep one foot in the door through curatorial practice and having a space is a great way to not only influence your own art, but to bring other artists up along with you. Not only do we want, a regional audience or a local audience, but we want to get artists out. And now we have the opportunity through social media to have a wide viewership. People aren't going to be flying down to Tucson to go to an everybody show per se, but at least they can see great documentation on the website, follow us on Instagram. And already through that, we've been able to get some artists into shows and meet curators and art buyers, and it's been a really awesome experience.
It's important to me that it exists and that hopefully that will encourage more people to do something similar too.
And now, Arizona Profiles, a series of personal recollections, moving memories, and little-known Arizona stories. In October of 1967, Bob Barnett was on his 43rd mission over North Vietnam when his plane was shot down by a surface-to-air missile. He spent several days on the ground evading capture by the North Vietnamese until a dog gave away his location.
They threw me in the back of a truck and took me into the Hanoi Hilton. And stayed in there for 6 days and kept awake, and they put me in ropes and interrogated me. And then they put me into solitary confinement. And I was there for about a month, and then I went to the zoo, and that's where I spent the next 3 years. We'd get up and this cellmate and I, the cell was maybe, I don't know, 10 feet by 10 feet. And we had our 2 bedboards, and we'd walk around in circles for an hour. And we probably walked from Los Angeles to New York and back. Well, we had an escape from our camp one time, and these guys, they're brutal. When they captured the 2 guys, and they killed one of them, torturing him. They'd catch you communicating, they'd make you be on your knees and hold your hand up for a couple of days at a time, you know, stuff like that. I was so sneaky they never caught me, and I think I communicated almost every day. I always was optimistic. I operated under the idea that if I could just get through the next 3 months, because I'm going to be out of here in 3 months. If I'd really known that I was going to be there that long from day one, it would have been a lot harder, I think. And it was hard as it was. It was very hard. And it seemed like the people who were really religious said, God, why is this happening to me? You know, God did something where me, I said, well, I probably deserved it. And I was in the 3rd group that came out on March 14th, 1973. My wife waited, and we went on with our life. She did a really good job. And my daughter was 6 when I left and 13 when I came back.
What are your memories of the Vietnam War? Share your story with us by visiting our website, azpm.org/Vietnam. This September, watch for the new AZPM original documentary, Arizona and the Vietnam War, and an epic 10-part, 18-hour film series, The Vietnam War, from directors Ken Burns and Lynn Novick, in September on PBS 6. Thank you for joining us on Arizona Illustrated. Next week, a special presentation of Arizona Illustrated's 2016 Emmy nominees and winners. I'm Tom McNamara. See you then.